Well, my name is Brent Leo Smith, and I'm living up to the Leo in my surname. We have some lions. Lions that are not the Djuma Pride. Shock, horror. We're on a live African safari. And believe it or not, I didn't even know they were here. I was on my way to another surprise when I saw next to the road. Hello, kitties. I haven't seen you in a long time. You lot have grown up a lot. Naughty boys. Don't look at me like that. Naughty boys. These are not lions we see too often up here in the north. Who can tell me which lions are these? If you know the answer, hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or questions at WildEarthTV. Who are these young upstarts? Now, of course, it is the heat of the day. There are two lionesses and 3 young males here. There's one of the lioness. And they're looking very hot and heavy. It is, of course, the hottest day of the season so far. And I've been going on about how cool October's been. So October came to say hello this afternoon. It is at 36 degrees Celsius, 92 Fahrenheit. And we are in the sun with the... Oh, I'm not going to tell you, Pride. Well done, Liz. It is indeed the Tsalalas Pride. Oh, forgot my sunglasses on. Naughty Brent. As I said, I didn't know these lions were here when I drove around the corner. Yes, here we go. Tsalalas Lions. Lovely surprise. Not what my plan was. I've got another surprise that I'm going to try get to. I'm going to leave these lions now because we'll come back to them. There's going to be a little bit more pressure on the other sighting. So I want to get in there before all the other game drives are out so we can spend as much time as possible with the other surprise. But we will come back to the Tsalalas Lions shortly, and I've got lots of stories to tell you about them. Bye, guys. So while we dash off to the next surprise, and it is a real surprise, I would not have dismissed the Tsalalas so quickly if there wasn't something very special down the road. Let's go back to Jamie while I try find the next surprise. The main Pride of Lions I used to see in 2005, 2006 around the Sand River. They're named after a low-felt gardenia tree and a place called Tsalalas Pan on Mondolozi. Now, Tsalalas Pan is a beautiful natural pan where there's quite a lot of low-felt gardenias. And the original tailless lioness, and she's got no tail, therefore her name was the tailless lioness. I know other people called her different things, but I only knew her as tailless. And she was one of my favorite lions at the time. And the original tailless, and the grandmother or great-grandmother of these little guys here. Now, the amazing thing is, her daughter, who is the main lioness here, is also tailless. Now, there are a couple of lionesses with this pride, so there could be, she might not be here. I know there's a theory that one of them has cubs, so we're just waiting for one. There we go. Just pop in here behind Ryan. Are you happy with that, Jean-Pierre? So Ryan's just telling me, when he arrived here, the lions were lying under the marula tree. If we come out a little bit there, Jean-Pierre. And now this happens with lions quite often. You see where Ryan's car is? The shade from Ryan's car, the lions keep moving closer and closer to lie in the shade. And that's how relaxed they are around these vehicles. Look at that, there we go, the young Tsalala boys. Sachs would like to know, would the young males fight with the Birminghams? Not at this age. Pat. Sorry, Pat. I know for some reason with this wind, our communication seems to be a bit iffy at the moment. Now, Pat was wondering, would they fight with the Birminghams? At this age, the Birminghams were in South Africa, and there's a wonderful little description called a snortklap. And a snortklap basically means if you hit something so hard, all the snot comes out of them. Now, that's what the Birmingham boys would do to these little boys if they happen to even think about fighting with them. The Birmingham boys are in their prime, and they are well experienced. Matimbas would do the same thing to those little boys, even though the Matimba males are quite old. Those young boys are still no match for them just yet. Remember, if you are new and you've just found us, we are sitting next to lions live in the African bush. You can send me your questions through to #SafariLive on Twitter or questions at WildEarthTV. Now, we're sitting with the Tsalalas Pride, and I'm just trying to think. No, it's not the first Pride of Lions I ever saw in the Sabi Sands. The first Pride of Lions I ever saw in the Sabi Sands are no longer. They were called the Castleton Pride. They were wiped out by the Mapoho. So the tailless lioness is just lying where we can't see her. I'll try and move a little bit later. For now, we're in the best spot. Oh, head up. Now, they look reasonably well fed. Apparently they caught a buffalo in Shirley's not that long ago. Now, I just mentioned the reason that Tsalalas Pride is this far to the north, although they traditionally do come up into this area, is because the Matimba males that were pushed by the Birminghams are now to the south. And Nat.Geo was wondering that. So the Tsalalas have been just to the south of us quite a bit, and also to the west, outside of what would be traditionally their range. And the reason for that is those young males. Now, if they didn't have those young males, they would probably accept the Birmingham boys as the latest conquerors of their area. Now, they're still trying to ensure these young males go off to independence, which should happen quite soon. You'll probably find these females are going to start coming to estrus and will start mating with the Matimbas relatively soon. But while these boys are not independent, these lionesses are going to try and keep them as far away from the Birminghams and the Matimbas. I can't remember who's fathered or apparently fathered these ones. Could have been the Majingalans. I'm not 100% sure. Now, if you notice her eyes, she's also got amber eyes. Of course, it's not the amber-eyed in Kahuma. She's a very pretty girl. Now, I've seen, as I said, one of the first prides I saw when I was working on Londolozi, and they literally used to be in and around our staff village on many an occasion. The one morning, as you drive into Londolozi, before you get to the lodges, there's the boom gate, and there's a man with a clipboard in a little hut, and he gets there at about 7 o'clock every morning, and he's got one of those old stable doors on his little hut, and what he does is, because there are 5 lodges at Londolozi, is he sits there and he directs you down which road to go depending on which lodge you are going to. And on that particular morning, we came up to the little hut, and the bottom half was closed. The top half was open, and there was a Londolozi cap and 2 sets of eyes looking over the bottom, trying to reach for the top half of the door to close. And just outside were the original tailless lioness and her 2 daughters, which are these, I'm pretty sure these 2 females here, and 5 mapochos. And Shane, he had just arrived at work. He said he was just checking his arrivals for the day when the lions wandered up and flopped down in front of his hut. He said he just managed to close the bottom half, but he was scared the movement of closing the top half might attract their attention. Now, we had some interesting stories with those lions around, because they were in camp often. The funniest for me was with the mapocho males. Now, as I said, Londolozi's got 5 small camps, or 5 camps spread out along about 2 kilometers of the Sand River. And there's a central kitchen. And then each of the lodges each have their own satellite kitchens. So a lot of the big prep and stuff is done by the head chef in the main kitchen. And then the final, obviously, cooking and stuff is done in the little satellite kitchens at the individual camps. And we were following the late great mapocho male lions. And what happened was, we came down into the entrance road to one of the lodges, and there came Connie. Connie was a very large lady. She was about my height, so very tall Shangaan lady, and very large Shangaan lady. And she was driving off to one of the camps to go deliver the food, and she came around the corner on her golf cart, and she was driving a golf cart, and we were trying to stop her from coming through in our game drive vehicles. And I've never seen it done, and I don't think it can be done to this day. Connie, who was driving the golf cart, drove, stopped, put one leg on the ground, turned the whole golf cart around and sped off in the other direction with the mapocho coming after her. We managed to drive a game drive vehicle in between the lions and the golf carts. And that was very funny. Connie, from that day on, refused to drive the golf cart after dark. I don't blame her. I wouldn't want to drive a golf cart into a pride of 5 male lions after dark. So, we will move just now. We'll just wait for Orion to make his way out, and we'll pop around. We'll see if we can see the tailless behind of the tailless female. Now, Paul says he thinks the Tsalala females are much bulkier than the Nkuhumas. That's difficult to say, Paul. I mean, they're all quite big lionesses. I mean, an average lioness is anything from 110, 115 kilograms up to 150. And it's so difficult without seeing them next to each other. It's very possible that it could be a bit bulkier. The young males. I can't see him from where I'm sitting. But his head's up. Yes, I think the only other person who's currently, actually with the Safari Live team who's seen the mapochas would be James. Of course, James and I were both at Londolozi over the same time, over 10 years ago. Sure, we're getting old. James faster though. Okay, there we go. We're going to pop around and move into a different spot shortly. Okay. Let's go see the bottom of the lioness, see if it's tailless. Do I detect the lack of a tail? I do. So there we go. Now, for me, it's very strange. I mean, a tailless lioness is not something you see very often. And to have two tailless lionesses in two consecutive generations, both losing their tails to hyenas, is very strange. So her mother and now her have both lost their tails to hyenas. Her mother had less of that, the stump than that. It was almost completely flat. It does give her, when she's up and mobile, quite an interesting outline. It doesn't seem to affect her hunting prowess at all. Still a very successful hunter. Isn't that incredible? Now, I think you were saying, Jamie, and you saw the Tsalalas not that long ago?
A week ago. About 100 meters over.
A week ago?
But they were off to visit.
Ah, yes, I do remember. Well, nice of them to come visit. Let me reminisce about my days on the Sand River. Oh, they looked like, oh, there we go. Oh, roll over. Definitely more of a stump than her mother used to have. Okay, so we're still sitting there, look, and you can see there's still a little bit of an open wound. Not really an open wound, more of a scar tissue build-up. But as long as I've seen this lioness in the northern Sabi Sands, she has had a stump. These boys have grown up incredibly. Now, the last time I remember seeing them was at Sydney's dam, where they went on a buffalo killing rampage. I think it was 4 buffalo in 3 days at Sydney's dam. And the local hyena population also gave them quite a hard time in that area, and sniffing the air, hoping for some buffalo. Oh, my comms in. Yes, they are. With Kirsten talking to me. My comms are in. There we go. They're working now. Yes, I can hear you, Kirsten. Okay, so it looks like we're quite lucky. I thought there would be more pressure, so we can spend a little bit more time here. So we're going to sit patiently here, and let's sit this way so you can see a lion behind you. It's not better than just looking at me. What do you think, Sean? Okay, all good here? Okay, great. There's a lion behind me, and we're live. No, I'm joking. You guys know all of this stuff. But as I'm saying, it's quite nice to see animals we don't see frequently, like the Anderson male and the Tsalalas. It's a great part about being in an open system. I mean, if we include the whole Greater Kruger, Mozambique and Zimbabwe, it's 8.5 million acres that is purely dedicated to wildlife, which is incredible. Now, if you think about old world Europe, for example, the largest intact piece of temperate forest in old world Europe is in Poland, and it's less than 20,000 hectares. So what's that? 40,000 acres of actual intact wilderness, pristine wilderness in old world Europe. 40,000 acres. We're sitting in 8.5 million acre. It's outstanding. It's unbelievable. Now, back to our tailless wonder. Mary is wondering whether the loss of a tail affects her balance. Not that I've seen her, and from what I've heard and from watching her mother, she was an incredibly proficient hunter without that tail. And of course, it's always just one thing less for the hyenas to bite. That, of course, was a joke, as she did lose it to hyenas battling over her carcass. Now, they're looking particularly healthy. Now, for me, that middle, or the young male on the left, is the biggest of the three. And so I'm not sure whether they were all born to a single female or they're from separate females. We'll have a better look. There could be a little bit of age gap between them. I always love young male lions. They sort of look quite awkward. Like they haven't quite grown into themselves yet. I suppose a bit like a gangly teenage boy. Acne and facial fuzz. So guys, I need to be on the game drive radio for a little bit to try to organise the sightings that's coming in. It looks like we will be able to stay a little bit longer with the Tsalalas Pride. Okay. So I'm just going to be quite busy for the next little while, and I wonder what Jamie's getting up to back on Djuma. So while I just chat away on the radio, and we'll be back shortly, we're going to jump back across to Jamie, who's on Djuma.